The polished tips of Linda Hayes's designer flats creaked against the hardwood as she eased open the front door, her grip tightening around a gleaming brass key. Afternoon light glinted off the metal, and off the HOA president pin proudly perched on her lapel. With a deep, self-righteous breath, Linda lifted her phone, muttering about unapproved decor violations. Her eyes locked on a vibrant painting above the fireplace. To her, it wasn't art. It was an insult to neighborhood harmony. She moved closer, snapping photos of what she called aesthetic crimes. But before she could document the offensive throw pillows, 2 police officers stepped out from the hallway. Their badges caught the same sunlight as her key. Their expressions, half confusion, half authority, froze her mid-sentence. Linda's manicured hand hovered in the air, her mouth open, no words coming out. "I'm Daniel Lee, and I had moved into Willow Creek Estates just 3 months after signing my divorce papers. The community had promised quiet evenings, trimmed lawns, and friendly neighbors, and for a while it was perfect, until Linda appeared on my doorstep. Linda Hayes ran the HOA like a monarchy. My first violation came within 48 hours, curtains too visible from the street. She handed me the printed notice personally, smiling like she was doing me a favor. The next day, she cited my mailbox for being the wrong shade of gray. A week later, she complained my garden hose coiled the wrong direction. Each ticket came with a letter quoting obscure rules that sounded freshly invented. I started keeping my blinds closed until she fined me again for creating a hostile visual presence. But what started as irritation soon turned into something unsettling. During meetings, Linda bragged about homeowners who trusted her enough to let her inspect interiors. When I refused her requests, she acted stunned, like I'd broken some unwritten oath. Her tone changed after that. The polite smile faded, replaced by clipped warnings and thinly veiled threats. Then small things began to change. A flower pot moved, footprints on my porch that weren't mine. My front doormat shifted an inch every few days. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it, until the night I came home from a weekend trip and found muddy footprints leading down my hallway. That's when I called the police. Detective Renee Alvarez listened carefully as I recounted months of harassment. When I showed her the pile of violation letters, she sighed, long and tired. "Without proof," she said, "it's your word against hers." So we made a plan. Hidden cameras. 2 officers stationed inside while I went about my usual evening walk. If Linda really was sneaking in, we'd catch her red-handed. The only thing I didn't know, Linda already had a key, one she'd quietly lifted years ago from the HOA office archives. The trap was set for Thursday evening. As always, I took my golden retriever, Max, for our 6:30 walk. At 6:47, the camera caught her. Linda Hayes approached my front door, glanced around, and slid the brass key into the lock with practiced ease. She stepped inside, heels clicking like she owned the place. And when she turned toward the living room, she didn't notice the officers waiting in the shadows. The faint hum of my hidden camera feed filled the patrol van parked down the street. I watched, pulse pounding, as Linda Hayes crept across my living room, snapping photos like a thief cataloging stolen art. She paused at my bookshelf, muttering about questionable reading material visible through the front window, then aimed her lens at my rug. "Unapproved pattern," she whispered. Officer Lopez cut her off. "Ma'am, HOA rules don't override the law. You can't enter someone's home without consent." She thought she was enforcing order, but she was about to learn what real authority looked like. That's when Officer Maria Lopez stepped out from the hallway, voice calm but firm. "Ma'am, can you tell us why you're inside this residence?" Linda froze, her phone slipping from her grip. The screen shattered as it hit the hardwood, a perfect reflection of her composure. This is an official HOA inspection, she stammered, waving her badge like it carried legal power. Do you have permission from the homeowner to enter? Officer James Carter asked, stepping closer. Linda's face flushed pink. Permission? I am the homeowner's permission. I have the authority to ensure community compliance. Her voice rose, tight with the certainty of someone who'd never been told no. In her mind, she wasn't trespassing. She was saving the neighborhood from chaos. She fumbled in her purse, pulling out a laminated copy of HOA bylaws and flipping through the pages like a desperate lawyer searching for a loophole. See here, Section 4B, routine inspections are permitted for... For the first time, Linda wasn't the one giving orders. She was standing in front of people who didn't care about her title. Her voice cracked as she dialed her husband on speaker, sobbing about unlawful detainment. The officers explained the situation calmly, and the line went silent. You could almost hear her world collapsing through the static. Ma'am, Lopez said gently, you're being detained for unlawful entry and criminal trespassing. Linda's eyes widened. You can't do this. I have rights. I have a key. The officers exchanged a look. That's exactly the problem, Carter said. And then came the metallic click of handcuffs, sharp, cold, final. For years, she'd held the entire neighborhood hostage with her clipboard and charm, but now the queen of Willow Creek was in chains. As the officers led her out, porch lights flicked on, one by one. Neighbors peeked through blinds, whispered, and recorded from their lawns. Linda tried to hide her face, but her name-brand blazer and HOA pin gave her away instantly. From my seat in the van, I watched her step into the patrol car, disbelief painted across her face. She still didn't understand. Not really. Because in her mind, she hadn't broken in. She'd only been doing her job. The night Linda Hayes was arrested, Willow Creek Estates didn't sleep. By sunrise, the video of her being led away in cuffs had already spread through every neighborhood group chat. The HOA queen was dethroned, and for once, everyone was talking freely. The woman who'd written the rules was now the one being written about. That weekend, the community hall overflowed for an emergency HOA meeting. Normally, Linda ran these gatherings like courtroom sessions, timed speeches, strict seating, icy smiles. But this time, her chair was empty. One by one, residents stood up to speak. Eleanor from Maple Drive shared how Linda fined her for hanging a bird feeder. Robert admitted his random mailbox inspection had ended with Linda inside his foyer, uninvited. Even the soft-spoken couple from Lot 12 revealed she'd once entered their backyard to photograph their patio furniture. The vote to remove her from the board was unanimous. Even her loyal supporters, those who once echoed her every word, couldn't look each other in the eye. The tyrant had fallen, but the truth was only beginning to surface. Detective Renee Alvarez's report hit the community like a storm. Linda hadn't just entered my home. She'd been inside at least 3 others. On her laptop were hundreds of photos, interior shots, private rooms, even children's play areas, labeled with dates and comments about decor consistency. Each homeowner had a file. Mine was marked in red. Her notes included guesses about my salary, my schedule, and even the furniture I'd bought after my divorce. The detective called it criminal surveillance disguised as civic duty. She didn't just enforce the rules. She thought she was the law. Months later, the courtroom was silent as Linda stood trial. Her attorney pushed for leniency, painting her as overzealous, not malicious. But when Linda insisted on testifying, she sealed her own fate. For nearly an hour, she lectured the judge about preserving community standards, calling herself a guardian of neighborhood integrity. When the prosecutor asked, "Do you believe you have the right to enter any home here?" Linda said without hesitation, "Yes." Gasps rippled through the room. The judge's expression turned cold. 2 years probation, 300 hours of community service, $10,000 in fines. The verdict landed like a gavel to her ego. For the first time, Linda Hayes faced a rule she couldn't rewrite. As the cuffs returned to her wrists, she stood there, no longer the immaculate HOA president, but a cautionary tale in pearls and pride. The neighbors she once controlled now whispered one shared truth: power only protects you until it meets accountability. I never saw Linda again after that day. But every time the floorboards creak in my hallway, I remember that afternoon, the glint of the stolen key, the flash of police badges, and the sound of justice closing the door behind her. She built her kingdom on control, and it collapsed the moment she mistook authority for ownership.